Mr. Daniel,
Yeah.
super happy to have you on the podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming on,
Yeah.
man. I'm excited for you to share something new that your team has developed for the use for a greater cause.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's called the Lendli app.
It's just
right?
Len Lee, yeah.
Or
but
Lendli.
Yeah, it's an app, so we try to specify
Okay.
so people understand what it is.
Okay. Yeah. So what is Lendli?
Len Lee is a peer-to-peer marketplace
Okay.
for renters.
Mhm.
So it's your go-to for all rentals, hopefully in the
Mhm.
future. But right now we're targeting things like party rentals, wedding rentals, equipment rentals. So if you need to borrow a forklift or something like that,
Mhm.
adventure sports, skis, snowboards. The wedding industry is huge in this area, in
Mhm.
Sacramento especially, but in other areas as well. It seems like the suburbs are bigger on that,
Mhm.
and a lot of venues in the area, and so people are planning weddings and parties all the time, and so it's a great place to connect them to other lenders, small businesses that are lending these items out. We're also looking at things like motorsports, possibly RVs in the future.
Mhm.
People want to rent an RV to go across the country or just across the state. You know, why look all over the place? Type it in, rent it, you're good.
I just remembered like all these movies that exist about families renting RVs.
Yeah.
Good times. Go to Lendli and rent an RV, dude.
There you go. Hey, I hope they add us in a movie, you know, Netflix, if you're watching this.
Lendli.
You know?
Okay, so Lendli is similar. Why is Lendli different from Craigslist? Why is Lendli different from the other app platforms out there?
First off, Craigslist is primarily selling. Lendli does offer that as a secondary feature. Say a business is trying to sell old stock or old inventory to somebody else. Why go somewhere else? You know, you can list it in the app. It's very easy to switch over between buying and renting. That's number one. Number two would be safety. We verify our users that rent from you. So you have to go through a quick verification process, but it keeps both sides safe. You don't have somebody random messaging you from a number that is not even in your area, you know, and they can't pick up the phone or whatever else the excuse is. It's pretty safe. You have like most other apps, similar to like Airbnb, where you have a rating system. So you can sort of test out who this person is, look at their previous transactions, and have a sense of security there. The other thing is Craigslist is somewhat old school in their interface. You know, it's sort of inconvenient to use because
kind of like the old Windows or something.
Right, exactly. We're trying to make things very simple. You know, you want to rent something, good. You don't have to click through multiple pages. You hit search, find what you need. Now you're directly messaging that lender. You ask them, you know, when is it available? It saves it for you. You could put down a deposit to save that item. Now you have that jet ski rental for this weekend. You don't need to go buy a jet ski just because you wanted to have a good day, you know, or maybe a snowboard rental, or, you know, or if you're planning out a wedding, you can book this out 6 months in advance, set a deposit, and it's all recorded within the app and you're good to go. You can rest easy. I know a lot of people worry about their wedding. You know, you hear the typical terms like bridezilla and so on. We want to ease their stress, help them out. So make it comfortable for them and an enjoyable experience where it's simple. It shouldn't be something that stresses you out.
Okay, that's awesome. So you talked a little bit before. It was available on iOS. Is it available on all different platforms now? And
not yet. Lendli's pretty new. We're hoping to launch a website within the next month or two. Okay, and that'll sort of help the Android users, and they can use the website until we get an Android app out. But we're working on that. It takes some time. So we wanted to test it on iPhone. There's a lot of young people on iOS. A lot of vendors that we talked to beforehand use iPhones. So we figured we'd want to test it with that first.
Okay, awesome. So that's a little bit about Lendli. I would like to talk a little bit about the business side of Lendli. You're the CEO, the owner. What's your big title?
Whatever title that people put on, you know, somebody that starts something. So yeah, typically a CEO, but I'm all of the above. I'm sort of a one-man show right now. I'm looking to expand and bring others on board.
Okay.
But I have a developing team that I am close with. I've built a good relationship with, and so they do all my design and everything. And so we've brainstormed a lot through this process, how to make this easy to use.
Okay.
What can we learn from other companies, other apps, and try to take the best of everything and sort of make this app that's easy to use for both the lender and the renter. So that it's intuitive and so on. But the business side of things can get tough, especially if you're doing it on your own. You have to believe in yourself. That's number one. And it helps if you have family that believes in you. If it helps that you have family that sort of understands the market, or possibly somebody that's gone through the same thing. But you do run into a lot of things within business, at least in my short experience, that really set up a roadblock, and you have to think your way through it. You can give up pretty early on and think, I'm not too invested into this yet. Why not just stick to a 9 to 5, which is totally fine. But if you want to pursue business, I think you're going to have to jump through some hurdles and really sort of fight your doubt and find places to find motivation.
So someone listening or watching has a great idea for an app.
Yeah.
What is your schedule like? Obviously you still have to support a family, right?
Yeah, that's the tough part. Yeah.
So you didn't throw everything, walked in, quit your job, I'm starting an app.
Yeah.
You have to juggle kind of 3 different worlds: family, job, life. Now this kind of startup that you have. Talk a little bit about that, maybe to encourage or discourage somebody listening.
No, balance is key. I mean, it's really difficult sometimes. Some late nights, especially when you have children, have a daughter, and you want to spend time when you get home. I still have my full-time position because I can't take the same risks I could have taken when I was single.
Right.
That's why if people listening want to start a business while they're single, I would say that's the time to do it. You have no risk. You have family. If you lose everything, you could start from scratch, no problem. There's nobody waiting for a paycheck to come home. So it's a little different when you have a family, but it's been great. My wife's been supportive, but you also want to spend time with family. And so you have a lot of plans and you're trying to find a schedule that matches all of that. Typically what I do is when I come home, I spend some time with my wife, my daughter, and we put her to sleep about 8 o'clock. So that's sort of when my work starts. Sometimes I'm up past midnight. So, 4 or 5 hour shifts here and there. Not really a shift, but a work schedule. It doesn't have to be every night. It depends on what the workload is. Early on, it was a lot. I would hide in a corner in a coffee shop and just, while everybody's studying around me, I'm over here designing, doing whatever I can, searching what the market's like. Different tactics, different aspects of web design or app design. There are a lot of things I had to learn for the first time, and so it helps when you're in a certain industry. It's great that I had friends and relatives within this industry. And so that's sort of eased the process. But overall, I think balancing a schedule and being consistent with it. Because if you do 30 minutes one day, 4 minutes the next day, and you're already behind because of that 30 minutes, you're going to burn out because it keeps piling up. And I found that if I just chip away at it little by little and not look at it as this big block, it helped. And you look back and you're like, wow, I've already done so much within this last 2-3 months.
Okay. So you've released the app now on iOS. What were you talked about hurdles. What were some of the hurdles, and what's some of the most difficult things about designing an app? Like, I'm thinking designing an app, honestly, I don't even know where I would start.
Yeah, I didn't either. I didn't know much about apps. I did a little bit of web design in high school and so web design with friends, but it was also new to me. I ended up reaching out through somebody I knew. I sat down with some developers. I pitched my idea and said, what would it take to develop this? I mean, teach me, send me books, whatever I need to know. and they said, we're out of your price range, you know?
Oh, geez.
So I was like, what's your price range? And it was about like 150 an hour. And I said, yeah, you're out of my price range. But thank you very much. But they connected me with somebody else. I sat down. He was young, starting his own company as well. He was a designer, and I loved his passion. He was willing to help, and he did much more than teach me about app design. He taught me about business and how he did things as well. So I really value his input. But some of the hurdles would be trying to figure out, like you hear the word bugs, right? You hear bugs in an app or whatever. There's a lot of that, not just in an app, but in creating a flow, right? Because if you're creating a marketplace where people come together and they message and they have some sort of transaction, you need to develop and think through the flow of the entire thing. Like somebody opens the app, what do they see first? What is their first thought? Where is their eye looking? So you have to think through all of these things.
Wow.
Every click, because if you think of how a website or app works, it's just in multiple layers, and it's basically you have images that have buttons and then you just program those buttons, but it's multiple images that you filter through. So like Instagram, it's a perfect example. It's just a flat 2D image that you can sort of scroll through almost like a little magazine, right? And each button has to be functional and programmed and so on. And so developers and designers are thinking of this. Where is your eye going? Is it too much on the screen? What are the colors like? Are they clashing? So there's a lot of those kind of things to think through that you wouldn't think if you just use a regular app.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we don't appreciate apps.
Yeah.
And everything it takes to make them.
No, I mean, honestly, open up a successful business website and just see that it's pleasant to look at. It's easy to scroll through. There's not too much information. The spacing is just right. I mean, that's brilliant in design where you feel comfortable. It's almost like an art piece that's not cluttered. You're looking at it, you're like, it's just right. People design their homes like this. You can walk into a home sometimes and you see it's all cluttered and it makes you feel uncomfortable. In some homes you walk in and things are spaced just right. There's just enough items in the room where it's like, okay, this is cozy, So.
Okay. So why in the world did you decide to go with an app? From what I can tell, you were never like a software geek growing up. You loved sports, and what brought you or led you to this decision?
Yeah, I guess everybody has a story. So in high school, I used Craigslist a lot. I mean, I loved Craigslist.
Yeah.
That was like the go-to. I'd always look for deals.
Was you a hustler?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, look for bikes, whatever I could find. And
longboards.
Exactly. There's people who were into that. But so I really loved Craigslist. And basically after high school, like you said, I was into sports and I started trying out some hobbies. I picked up photography and just started shooting for fun. Some family members asked me to do photo shoots. And I found that while traveling, going somewhere, San Francisco, wherever else, I needed a lens or I needed something. I mean, it was a pain in the neck to try to find a rental store, to find some place I can rent a camera or a lens for a day. I ended up traveling to Canada. I have some family there. And I was trying to find a lens to shoot with. We were going to Banff National Park, beautiful there, Moraine Lake. And I really wanted to get this lens to capture it all. I didn't have it. I mean, I called almost every store in the area to see if they rent it out. Most places just sell it and the return policy is like a day or something. People don't really trust you with
expensive
lenses.
items.
Yeah. So the only rental store that I found was like an hour and a half away, and it was just so inconvenient. It bothered me. Like, why isn't there something like this out here where you can just look up in your area, find somebody down the street that's renting this out. You return it in 2 days or 3 days. They make some money on it. It's not just sitting on their shelf. And you're happy you didn't have to jump through a bunch of hoops. That sat in the back of my mind for a while, And I expected it to be out there. I expected somebody to make it. And as time progressed, I sort of talked about it to some people and said, I wonder why this is not out here. I wonder why no one's done this. I've looked at some companies that tried to do something, but they'd go after like niche markets, like only bicycles and so on. So one day I was like, I'm going to hate myself if I don't try it.
Yeah.
I'm going to hate myself that, if somebody down the street makes it, way after I came up with the idea. I'm going to be like, I'm going to be the guy telling the story that to my grandchildren, you know, someday I was that guy.
Yeah.
So I gave it a try. And honestly, as the ball started rolling, there was more and more passion that was building up. And it's sort of been like my baby. I sort of started it from scratch, and I've seen the need for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I travel, I've actually seen the need within my own life where I'm like, man, I wish I can rent a surfboard right now. Like just in this, off of this beach somewhere, find somebody that has a home in this area.
Yeah.
You know, not drive 3 hours, you know, down to, let's say, Long Beach from where yeah, exactly. So things like that where I'm like, I can't wait till we're at that point where I can just punch something in. It's down the street for me. It's a couple minutes away. I can rent it, return it. Even things like on college campuses, you know?
Yeah.
Rent out a bike or a longboard from somebody for the weekend from another dorm or another person on the campus.
That's awesome. Actually,
Yeah.
Now that you put into that perspective, that'd be super, super useful.
Yeah. Why buy things, you know? I mean, like you could live a minimalist lifestyle. A lot of people do, especially if you're living in the city. You have a little apartment. Where are you going to store all this stuff?
Exactly.
Rent it out easily. And so that's the hope, is that things are accessible to you. You don't feel held back to try out different hobbies or adventure sports because you have to purchase all of these items. It's like, you want to try surfing? Go for it. You want to?
Before, especially like expensive hobbies, before you start investing thousands, hundreds of dollars,
right?
You rent something.
Rent all the gear that's worth thousands of dollars, but to you can rent it out for that day for, let's say, $50, $60.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you're doing, you're throwing an event, you know, having Thanksgiving party. You don't have to go to some warehouse in the middle of nowhere. You can rent out from the closest person next to you. You know, you need 10 chairs, maybe 50, whatever it may be. It's just, I want it to be the go-to place where it's just simple. You know, rent from people around you, build a community that shares with one another.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you come up with Lendli? Like, what's the story behind that? How did that happen?
So, man, it's tough naming a company. It really is. I went through so many names and trying to find a website. Almost most websites are bought out.
Yeah.
But I really tried to find something that's simple, not a lot of syllables. And I came up with the name Lend It, but there was a company out there with the name. I tried to work around with playing with the words. And I thought, you know, the idea of building this community, this friendly community, you know, I was like, what about friendly lending? Something around there. And I played with the wording there. And so Lendli is sort of like friendly. Yeah, friendly lending, you know, so Lendli, friendly. And that's sort of where the idea came from. And I've sort of stuck with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to spell it out to people, but I think most startup companies probably go through that. Like, when people used to tell me Lyft, I thought it was L-I-F-T, and then it was like L-Y-F-T. I was like, all right, you know.
Or like you hear Uber, like, I mean, those words mean nothing. At least yours has some relation to something else.
Right. And so at first, you don't know how to spell it or you don't know what it is. And then you see it, you get used to it, and then you can't unthink that word any other way. So.
Okay, I like that. Friendly, Lendli.
Yeah, there you go. Friendly
awesome.
lending.
Friendly lending.
Lendli. Say that 3 times fast.
Friendly Lendli. Friendly Lendli. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Lendli. So the what we kind of discussed the what a little bit about why you chose to do this. And let's go back a little bit to the how can I. You know, there's somebody in high school and college, and they have an awesome idea for an app or something. How can they start? And you're a perfect example because you're not a guy that was in college and high school, and software and programming engineering was your high or your strong suit.
Right.
You just had this awesome idea. You made it work. What's some insight or some tips you can offer?
I mean, you hear this a lot from people, and it might sound cliche, but really, if you have a passion for something, you can pretty much get anything done. I mean, the way I see it is, why is somebody better at me than something? If you really break it down, it's usually because they put time into that thing. Well, what if I put time into that thing? You know, it's like somebody's good at playing piano. Well, they put time into learning. I mean, people say they're talented. Well, all that means is they came to a point that they were practicing enough to where it sounds good or looks good. That's all that means is they're talented, you know? When somebody sees an athlete play, they're like, well, that guy's talented. Well, really, he sat and shot free throws while you were over there watching movies, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it takes is if you have a passion for something, you will push yourself to learn a lot. I'm that type of person. I enjoy learning about pretty much anything. And I don't think anything should be out of reach. I don't think you can accomplish everything in life. And that's why you build relationships. If you're not good at something and you see that somebody is, build a relationship with that person, learn from them, you know, possibly bring them on board, have them help you out. People are willing to help if you're
willing to be their friend
or that. Yeah. Don't use them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if people are looking to get into something and they have a passion for it, but they don't see it as something realistic, then, you know, people are like, well, drop everything and just pursue that, you know, full time and follow your passion. I would say if people aren't willing to take those kind of risks, try doing it part-time. You know, that doesn't hurt you. Maybe you'll lose some time, set apart a year, you know, and say, okay, this year I'm going to take 2 to 3 hours and try to throw it into this passion, whatever it may be. You know, maybe starting a business or studying for this random degree that nobody believes I can do. Like nobody thinks I have an engineering mind because I'm an artist, but you know, that's what I enjoy. I enjoy numbers.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take night courses, you know, and you can do that. I actually, while working full time, was taking night classes. And yeah, I thought I wanted to continue a career in medicine. But I pulled back. But either way, I didn't waste time. I learned about that. I got those classes out of the way.
It was an experience, yeah.
Exactly. So I think there are plenty of things on this earth that you can waste your time with, and there are plenty of things that you can occupy and actually do something productive. And so I think the sky's the limit. If you have a passion for something, pursue it. If it's not full time, pursue it part time. Pursue it an hour a day, and see where it takes you. You know, and I think passion grows. When you start investing into something, you're like, man, I've been doing this for a while. Why don't I put more time into it? So I think if more people did that, it'd be pretty good.
So, okay. So for websites, there's like different platforms where you can go and build a website. Is there something like that for apps? Like where you can go and just build an app and it makes it easy for you?
Yeah.
Did you try that kind of stuff? Or did you find out that all these things are a waste of time? I want to design everything myself.
Yeah, there are definitely platforms like that. I've explored some of those options. They're pretty convenient. I think what I wanted was pretty specialized. And I figured what I need is a team that understands this properly. That if I make my own app and it crashes and somebody has a wedding and they booked, I don't know, let's say 1,000 chairs.
Yeah.
And I'm over here playing on my phone trying to fix it for them. I just, you know, I couldn't trust myself enough to tell somebody else to trust me, you know? So I figured if renting something for somebody could be big. It could be something big in their life. Maybe it's their first date, or maybe they want something special. I don't want to ruin that for them, you know? Yeah. So I took that seriously and figured I need some professional help. But if somebody's thinking of doing something not as responsible, yeah, totally. There are definitely programs you can look up. I forget the name off the top of my head. There was a company somebody told me about when I was in Silicon Valley, and it's a great company. Basically, it's almost like Photoshop. You move things around and it programs it for you, and then you plug and play. It's pretty simple. So if people want to, I know some people do apps for like a church or for a nonprofit, and they'll use something like that. You can start that way and gain some experience, and definitely even build it for a small business, you know?
That's awesome. You talked a little bit about you had another job, a full-time job to support your family.
Yeah.
How difficult was that, or did you want to quit the job and kind of believe in your app, you know, because there's people out there like Gary V that'll preach the success out of you. You know, if you want to do it, you got to do it. Invest your full time. If you do part time, then your business will grow half as fast or whatever. How why were you willing, to, I mean, you did say you have a responsibility to your family, to your kid, you have to bring back, but you chose a career, to develop yourself in a career, get a full-time job, and then work on your passion.
Yeah.
What can you say to that?
So coming out of high school, I was in a health academy program, and my mom imagined I'd be a doctor my whole life. I mean, most moms out there, some sort of doctor.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy surgery. I really do. And I thought I wanted to be a surgeon. I observed in a local hospital in Kaiser here in Roseville in high school. And I thought, that's it. I want to be a surgeon. And so I thought to myself, okay, I'm finishing up high school. What kind of surgeon do I want to be? I mean, that's the rest of my life. I have to think about that. And I didn't want to go to school for about 10 years to decide this is not what I want to do. So I decided to become a surgical technician, work in the OR, work in surgery to sort of see what field I want to pursue. Schooling was only about 2 years. So I figured this is a quick way. And then at the same time, I can take other classes, which I was doing at a community college, to not waste time. And so I got a job as a surgical tech. I liked it. I've enjoyed all the surgeries and different things you get to see. I worked at Shriners a little bit, did a lot of burn trauma. Some of that's really tough to see, but at the same time, you're helping people. And so you really want to improve their lifestyle. So as time went on, I realized I don't think I can do this for the rest of my life. This is just not me, you know? I mean, I really enjoy it, but possibly maybe part-time, possibly some sort of business venture where I'm still partnered with something medical and I'm still part of that world, but I don't think I can do this for another 40 years. And so I figured, why would I push myself and be miserable? And so I started thinking about, what do I actually want to do? What aligns with my character? And I've noticed that I enjoy building things up. I enjoy leading. I'm very competitive, like in sports. And so it seems like business is that world for me. And initially I wanted to see, can I bridge something with medicine and business? There are a lot of companies that do that already. So over time, it's just kind of playing with things, going through things, and sort of seeing where my passions were. And then one thing led to another, and that's kind of where I'm at now. You talked about risk, right? So why stay there or pursue that? Because at that time, I truly thought that's what I wanted to do. And I think it's healthy to be flexible. If you realize that you lose a passion for something, it's okay to try to venture into something else. A lot of people feel like, well, I already wasted 4 years of schooling and then this passion died out. Might as well just pursue it for the rest of my life and be miserable. Like
everybody, I don't want everybody to think,
I wasted my time. No, I think to myself, like, what are you in a rush for? A lot of people are rushing to make money. I'm in a rush. Where are you rushing to? I mean, is there like a quota for how many minutes you have left to live? You know,
nobody knows exactly.
Yeah, you don't really know. A doctor put it to me this way. He said, either you turn 30 and you're a doctor, or you turn 30 and you're not a doctor. I mean, it's that simple. It's like, what do you want to do? You know?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's like the time's going to pass regardless. So that's kind of where I stand now. I mean, if this business goes well and I end up having a passion to build another business, so be it. You know, I think time will tell. I try not to plan too far into the future. I like to have some sort of 3-5 year plan. But it's tough to try to assume what you're going to like to do in 20 years. I mean, because if I think 6-7 years back, or even in high school, I had no idea I would be doing something like this or even be this type of person. Yeah. You know, so things change, and I think it's good to be flexible.
That's awesome. I think we'll wrap it up there, and I'd like to finish on the note that don't be afraid to change and to be flexible. And you know, politicians change their mind all the time.
Well, who's buying them? You know, that's why.
some people don't like it because they say, hey, that's what you said this many years ago. But you know, I think as people, we progress, we learn things. We learn to be more efficient. We become wiser, especially, you know, from 20 to 30. And like you said, you had no idea you'd be that kind of a person. Yeah. So someone listening or watching us, don't be afraid of who you are now, because as you grow up, you expose yourself to different experiences, different different philosophies, different people, and you learn different things. So like Daniel said, the younger you are, the less risk you have to take risky things.
Yeah,
So
take as many risks as you can. I mean, people might think you're crazy. That's totally fine. I know some people that just went out and traveled the whole world and they're just with the backpack on, like whatever, enjoy it. It's like you have this life and you try to maximize it, and people can maximize it monetarily. They can look at it, well, I have this many minutes left. How much money can I make out of those minutes? I think we should view it as value instead of money. What value can I provide to the world and to myself? And with that, I mean, explore, do whatever, enjoy this life as much as you can. And if starting up a business and having a career is part of that passion and value, do it. Be valuable to other people. Pursue that. So, I mean, it's tough to put a number on that, and as cliche as it sounds, the older you get, you start maturing and you realize that. My mom typically tells me, I hope she doesn't watch this, but I'm not bagging on her, but she'll say, oh, you didn't used to think this way. If I say something controversial or something new, or I challenge something. And I go, yeah, that's a good thing. If you think the same way for 10, 15 years, you're not growing.
13, you thought one way. At 23, you're thinking the same way. Something's wrong.
Exactly. Even if you come into a career and you thought one way when you came in, you should progress. You should understand what you're doing better, and your thinking should mature in anything, a relationship, whatever it may be. So if your thinking hasn't changed in the last 5 to 10 years, you're not growing. That's unhealthy,
Yes, sir. I'm going to say amen to that, because I really don't have nothing to add to that sermon right there, boy.
I wish I could drop this mic.
I hope you guys are motivated by that, because those are some deep words. Rewind, check it out, listen to it again. Again, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you guys for listening, for watching. Check out the Len Lee app. You have an iPhone, it's ready to be downloaded. There's things already on there posted that you can rent, and if you want to post things,
very simple. If you want to post things, you create an account. It's you go through a quick verification process, and that's it. You have an account, and you can list pretty much whatever you have at home. I mean, you read our terms and conditions. We don't want you to break the law or anything, but we try to keep it fairly open to your imagination. And if you're lending it, I'm sure people can rent it from you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Lendli. How do you spell Lendli?
Lendli.
Lenldi. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Misspelled it, but it's all good. Lendli. Did I say it wrong?
Lendli.
Did I say? Yeah. Lendli. Right? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Lendli. Lendli. Perfect.
It's all good.